We know that in the Podesta emails that were leaked, there was an email in there that was associated with Hillary Clinton in which she was conveying an interest in the body of Gilgamesh. So I think that that's anecdotal, but I think that the occult, members of the occult, and I think that Hillary is a member of the occult. The secrecy surrounding giants is kind of baffling to me. On one hand, you can understand why conventional archaeologists would keep it secret, because it just blows their theories to pieces. We know that Colonel Powell, for example, who's I believe the first director of the Smithsonian, he knew about the existence of the giants that were being discovered in the mountains of America because he wrote a letter to his friend. And in the letter he said that they cannot yet talk about the giants until they can determine where they came from. And the reason why the origin of the giants was so important to Powell is because Powell was an isolationist. And the Smithsonian Institute the doctrine is isolationist, the doctrine of isolationism. And the doctrine of isolationism propounds that all of these various cultures around the world developed independent of each other. In other words, there was no contact across the seas. Nobody was coming from over the sea. There wasn't cross-pollination from other cultures. In other words, the ancient Egyptians weren't cross-pollinating with anyone in the Americas. Everyone developed totally independent of each other. These are the pillars of modern archaeology and the conventional historical narrative. Isolationism. That's a problem. If you're finding red-haired giants all over the world, obviously these guys are migrating from over the sea. And they're coming from somewhere, and that somewhere happens to be the Middle East. And probably Sardinia as well. Most likely, I think Sardinia is the hub, was the hub of post-flood giants. So Powell didn't want to talk about the giants because it wrecked his theory of isolationism. So there's that, right? But the argument is made sometimes that, well, they don't want to talk about giants because it proves the biblical narrative. Okay, that's a very weak argument, though, because giants don't just prove the biblical narrative, they prove all the myths of all the different ancient cultures around the world. I mean, everybody's got myths of giants, so it's not exclusive to the biblical narrative. There's something else going on, especially if the Vatican's involved in the cover-up. Why would the Vatican want to suppress evidence that the biblical narrative is true? Why would they be interested in that? That doesn't make any sense. You think that they would be eager to present this evidence to the world and say, see, here's more evidence that the Bible is true, being Christians, right, as they are. So what is the reason? Why is this topic of giants so taboo, and why has there been what I believe is a historical and systematic cover-up of the existence of giants? Why? Well, the only thing that makes sense to me is that the occult is involved here, that the mystery schools are at the center of this, that the bodies of giants are being used in a very specific way, that there's a purpose, and that they don't want people to know, for whatever reason, they don't want people to know about the existence of these giants because there's something about them that's deeply entrenched, that's deeply intertwined with the mystery schools.
It's part of a ritual involving black magic.
Black magic?
Yeah, black magic only works on the rookie.
I mean, are they using the bodies for ritualistic purposes? Probably. Are they worshiping? Are they venerating these bodies? Probably. Are they harvesting genetic material from them? Probably. That's a much better explanation than, well, they don't want to prove the Bible is true. I think that it's a much more plausible explanation that they're harvesting something from the bodies. They have a use, they have a function. And whatever that use and function is, they don't want anybody to know about it. There's probably a black market that exists for these relics related to giants and other things as well, relics related in general to the antediluvian world. And oddities in general. I mean, out of place artifacts, rather. I know there's a black market for that. So, I suspect it's something to do with the occult. I suspect that the cover-up of giants, the primary reason, has much more to do with the mystery schools. You know, and everybody knows that Abraham Lincoln, I would say, knew that the bodies of giants were being discovered in the mountains. He references it. That ancient race of giants, I'm paraphrasing, whose remains can still be found in the mountains of America, something along those lines. Abraham Lincoln, that was a definitive statement by Honest Abe. And so I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that the bodies of giants were being discovered in the mountains of America, just like they were being discovered all over Sardinia. I think in some sense, and I illustrate this in the film I made about this, Holocaust of Giants, that in my film Holocaust of Giants, I draw a correlation between Sardinia, the situation that was happening in Sardinia in the 19th and early 20th century, and the situation that was happening in the United States, namely with the Smithsonian cover-up of the remains of giants that were being discovered in the mountains and elsewhere in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So I think there's a very interesting correlation there. Both America and Sardinia, for whatever reason, both of these areas were littered with the bones of giants.
Don't you guys remember?
Don't you guys remember? It's,
This website, WikiLeaks, and who is
Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton drink the blood of children?
I'm pretty sure it was Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh. You guys remember that?
We know that in the Podesta emails that were leaked, there was an email in there that was associated with Hillary Clinton in which she was conveying an interest in the body of Gilgamesh. So I think that that's anecdotal, but I think that the occult, members of the occult, and I think that Hillary is a member of the occult, have an interest in the bodies of giants. I think there's something very nefarious happening. I do believe that the late Tom Horn once related to me a very interesting story in which, and he's talked about it publicly as well, but he told me the details of this story while I was staying with him at his house in Crane, Missouri, and he told me that he had obtained images from the invasion of Iraq, specifically from an operation that was happening at the museum in Baghdad, the History Museum in Baghdad. And the images depicted specifically some very large sarcophagi that were being removed from the museum and loaded up into Chinook helicopters. And that after Tom had downloaded these images on his computer, shortly thereafter, his house burned to the ground. And he lost everything, including those images, but he lost everything else. He had a very substantial library that he had lost among all of his personal affects. So it's plausible